The movie opens in a secluded house, where an elderly couple, Peter and Sarah Wilson, live. While Sarah prepares dinner in the kitchen, Peter is in the attic sorting through old boxes, and he comes across one containing an old radio and decides to fix it. After finishing dinner, Sarah sets the house alarm and goes upstairs to tell Peter that dinner is ready. Peter shows her the old radio he found and says he'll join her soon after repairing it. Sarah leaves, and Peter manages to get the radio working again, and suddenly, he hears a woman's voice whispering for him to be quiet. When he turns the radio on again, a ghostly woman appears in the attic. Startled, he quickly switches it off, and the apparition vanishes. He turns it on once more, and the ghostly woman begins to approach him. He turns it off again, terrified, and then this happens. Downstairs, while setting the table, Sarah hears strange noises coming from the attic, and moments later, she hears Peter screaming in horror. The scene then shifts to a young woman named Emma, waking up in her boyfriend's apartment. Later that day, she attends a music audition but becomes overwhelmed with panic and is unable to sing, leaving her disappointed. When she returns home, her boyfriend Saba has prepared food to celebrate her audition, but Emma tells him it didn't go well. Just then, Emma receives a call from her mother, Sarah, who informs her about her father's condition. After the call, Emma tells Saba that she will be returning to Italy that night. While packing her things, Saba decides to go with her, which makes Emma happy. The next day, they arrive in Italy and head to the hospital where Peter has been admitted. Emma meets her mother, who can't clearly explain what happened to Peter, so she goes to speak with the doctor. The doctor explains that her father has a concussion that caused a blood clot to form in his brain. He adds that Peter is being treated with anticoagulants, and they are waiting to see how he responds to the medication, otherwise, surgery will be required. The doctor also mentions that Sarah has bruises all over her body, suggesting domestic abuse, and he believes Peter has been abusing Sarah, and that she pushed him down the stairs in self-defense. Sarah will remain in the hospital overnight for observation, and afterward, Emma tells her mother what the doctor said about Peter's condition. A nurse then arrives to take Sarah for further examination, and before leaving, Sarah insists that a man tried to kill her, but says it wasn't Peter. She gives Emma her car keys and warns her not to return to the house. Ignoring the warning, Emma takes her mother's car, and she and Saba drive to the house. As they enter the house, the alarm suddenly goes off, filling the place with loud noise until Emma manages to turn it off. She shows Saba around and takes him to her soundproof music studio, which her parents built for her when she first showed interest in music. They then head to the attic, where they find the old radio along with other items Peter used to repair. Emma struggles to believe that her father could have hurt her mother, but Saba reassures her that everything will be fine before going to the kitchen to prepare some food. Emma turns on the old radio, but instead of music, it only emits static, and she begins to wonder what really happened to Peter. Later, as she sits near a typewriter, she is startled to see the word "help" suddenly typed out on the page, and moments later, Saba calls out to her. He tells her that all the food in the house has spoiled and offers to get something to eat from a food truck they saw on their way there. Emma gives him her mother's old bicycle so he won't have to walk, and after he leaves, she locks all the doors. She goes to the bathroom, lost in thought, then heads to the laundry room to wash some clothes. Meanwhile, Saba arrives at the food truck, where he meets a man and orders food from a woman working there. When he tries to pay, he realizes he forgot his wallet and asks to pay later, but the woman refuses. As he's about to leave, Saba notices that both the bicycle and the man have disappeared, and with no other choice, he begins walking back to the house on foot. Meanwhile, Emma goes to her music studio and listens to a tape recording of her and her father singing together. Suddenly, the old radio in the attic starts playing the same song loudly throughout the house, but Emma doesn't hear it because she is inside her soundproof studio. When she begins recording her own music, she hears a ghostly woman's voice telling her to be quiet, which startles her, and then it happens. Emma begins hearing the same music coming from the attic and goes upstairs to turn off the radio. Just as she's about to switch it off, the ghostly woman appears. At that moment, Emma's cell phone starts ringing downstairs. She rushes to answer it but sees the ghostly woman again, and this time, there is also a ghostly man following her. The call is from Seba, but before Emma can answer, her phone battery suddenly dies. Moments later, the house telephone begins ringing, and Emma quickly runs to end the call, and Seba's attempts to reach her fail. She tries to leave the house but realizes that the keys she left in the door are gone. They've somehow been moved to another door. As she hurries to retrieve them, a burst of electricity flashes, and the ghostly man appears and vanishes right before her eyes. Terrified, Emma runs to another door to escape, but it is locked, and just then, the typewriter starts typing on its own. Emma finds the word, "help" typed again on the typewriter, and when she tries to communicate with the ghost responsible, the ghostly man appears and smashes the typewriter. Terrified, Emma rushes to the attic and tries to escape through the window, but it won't open. In the process, she accidentally hits a bell, which causes a ghostly girl to appear. The girl turns on the radio, then runs off, dropping her doll. When Emma turns off the radio, the doll disappears, and when she turns it back on, the doll reappears, this time closer to her. She switches the radio off and on again, and both the ghostly girl and the ghostly woman appear, and the woman attacks Emma before turning off the radio. When Emma regains consciousness, she runs to the studio to hide and notices that the recorder is still on. She puts on the headset and hears the ghostly woman's voice. Emma tries to communicate with her, but suddenly, the ghostly man's voice breaks through, saying he wants to kill her, and frightened, Emma removes the headset. Meanwhile, Seba arrives at the house and rings the doorbell, but there is no response, and each time he presses the bell, the ghostly man appears, moving closer to the door. Suddenly, the back door opens, and Seba cautiously enters the house, finding himself in the laundry room. Every time he makes a noise, the ghostly man manifests nearby, and when the washing machine suddenly starts making noise, Seba is attacked. In the studio, the terrified Emma charges her phone and sends a text to Seba, but it fails to deliver due to no network. She steps outside the studio, where she finally gets a signal, and sees several unread messages from Seba. Emma calls his phone, and realizes it's ringing from somewhere inside the house. She follows the sound to the laundry room, where she finds a weakened Seba. She helps him to the living room, and when he tries to speak, Emma quickly shushes him. Using a notebook, Emma writes to Seba that they cannot speak aloud because someone in the house can hear them. When she asks if he has seen anyone, Seba shakes his head. To test if the ghostly woman or man will appear, Emma turns up the volume on the TV, but nothing happens. She then takes Seba to the studio and plays the previous recording of the ghostly woman's voice for him. However, Seba hears nothing unusual. When Emma puts on the headset, she begins hearing the ghostly woman again, this time whispering that he is behind you. Emma turns around and realizes Seba has disappeared. As she searches for him, Emma finds Seba sitting silently in the living room, with the ghostly woman standing behind him, repeating the word quiet. It becomes clear that Seba has been possessed by the ghostly man, who suddenly attacks and begins strangling her. Emma fights back and manages to distract him by making a loud sound. When the ghostly girl appears, Seba, who is under the spirit's control, is momentarily confused, allowing Emma to escape and run to the attic. There, the old radio turns on by itself, and the ghostly girl appears once more, pushing Emma into a vision of her past. In the past, the ghostly woman, Faith, is seen speaking to her daughter, the ghostly girl named Katie. Faith tells her that her father, Ettore, is coming home and that it's time to play the quiet game. Katie asks why her father has been acting differently lately, and Faith explains that years ago, Ettore fought in a war. Since returning, he hasn't been the same and can't tolerate any noise, so they must always remain quiet. Moments later, Ettore arrives home, and during lunch, Faith tries not to make any sound while serving him food, but it's impossible to stay completely silent. When she accidentally drops a broken plate, the noise enrages Ettore, and he strikes her. Later, when Katie goes to pick up her doll, she accidentally knocks over the old radio, which begins to play music, and the sound infuriates Ettore even more. Faith rushes to protect her daughter, but Ettore turns on her instead and strangles her to death. In a fit of anger and fear, Katie grabs a pair of scissors and stabs Ettore. However, he strangles her as well, but soon succumbs to his injury and dies. Just then, Emma is pulled back into the present by the possessed Seba, who begins strangling her. She manages to hit him and escape to the studio, where she quickly begins to devise a plan. Seba goes after Emma, and upon seeing her inside the studio, enters, only to realize it's her reflection. The real Emma, who is outside, locks him inside the studio and blasts loud music through the speakers. The deafening sound makes Seba scream in pain and Emma runs off. She begins turning on every household appliance, including the alarm system, before running to the attic. Overwhelmed by the noise, Seba destroys the speakers and escapes the studio by breaking the window. He confronts Emma in the attic, but she has another plan. She activates the house alarm again, filling the entire house with a piercing noise that overwhelms them both. Suddenly, the power goes out, silencing the alarm, and the possessed Seba slowly approaches Emma. At that moment, the old radio switches on by itself, replaying the events of the past, Ettore killing his family, and hearing the voices of Faith and Katie. The spirit inside Seba begins to recoil. The ghosts of Faith and Katie appear, take Emma's hands, and all three begin screaming together. The sound grows so intense that the spirit of Ettore is forced out of Seba's body, writhing in pain before finally vanishing. Freed from the possession and the haunting, Emma and Seba reunite in relief. The next day, Peter and Sarah return home from the hospital, with Peter recovering well, and they have breakfast with Emma and Seba. When Peter and Seba step out to pack the luggage, Sarah assures Emma that Peter would never hurt her. Emma replies that she knows, it wasn't really him. Back in America, Emma attends another music audition, and this time, she is selected. Overjoyed, she shares the news with Seba as he listens to the song she performs. Meanwhile, the man who had stolen Seba's bicycle earlier is seen walking along a deserted road when he comes across a pile of abandoned items, including the old radio. Curious, he picks it up and decides to sell it. He takes the radio to an art store and sells it to the cashier for a small amount of money. Later, the cashier plugs in the radio and turns it on, but unlike before, the eerie music it used to play no longer comes through. Disappointed, she sets the radio aside and instead examines a picture frame with a portrait of a woman, which she decides to take home. That night, while working on her computer, the woman in the picture suddenly comes to life and begins crawling out of the frame toward her, causing the frame to fall to the floor. As the cashier bends down to stand it back up, she freezes in terror when a ghostly hand touches her shoulder. She turns around to find the woman from the picture missing, and then, suddenly, it happens. Okay guys, that's all the recap about Sound of Silence from 2023. Thanks for watching, see you again in the next video.